Members, we have 5 minutes before we start. We need a quorum. Please come to the chamber. Members, come to the chamber for a quorum.
House will come to order. Members, the prayer today will be given by DeKalb County's own Ricky Harco, the president of the DeKalb County Commission, dear friend of mine. And certainly, Ricky, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Father, we approach thy throne this morning through our mediator and Redeemer, the Lord Jesus Christ, and ask thy wonderful blessing upon this gathering together. Give all grace, strength, and the guidance of thy Holy Spirit, and that same Spirit might preserve us through days ahead to glorify thy name. Through thy sovereign and free grace, we ask that you would bless this body of legislators. Give them wisdom from above to execute those initiatives that benefit our state and many and varied communities, and that ultimately work for the good of all thy people. We thank you for each one's dedication to serve, and may their service be crowned with great success. We ask, Father, that if you could cause us to realize in some way, had we 1,000 tongues, it would not be sufficient to thank you for the blessings that we've received. And let us here this morning raise our Ebenezer in honor of thy divine providence that has brought us this far. Bless now our fellowship together. Bless these men that they may continue in such a way that would be pleasing to thee. And as we go through this particular day and days to come, we ask, Father, that you would do above and beyond that which we ask or think, and in a wonderful way may it redound to thy name's honor and glory. We know these are great blessings that we ask. We know that thou art a great God who is able. And as we ask today for these blessings that only you can give, would you grant them not because of who we are, but because of who Christ is. And in a wonderful way, we ask these things in the name of our crucified and risen Redeemer, the Lord Jesus Christ. And we all say, amen.
Amen. Members, today's Pledge of Allegiance is led by the famous Rodney Ivy. He is a member of the Sacred Harp Singers, and certainly a dear friend of mine. It's good to have him here today. Rodney?
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call roll.
Mr. Speaker, Albright, Baker, Barnes, Bedsole, Blackshear, Bolton, Boyd, Bracy, Brinyark, Brown, Butler, Carnes, Chestnut, Clark, Klaus, Collins, Colvin, Crawford, Daniels, Datcher, Drummond, Dubose, Easterbrook, Ellis, England, Ensler, Estes, Faulkner, Fiddler, Fincher, Fort, Garrett, Gidley, Gavan, Gibbons, Gray, Hall, Hammett, Harrison, Hassel, Hendricks, Hill, Hoke, Jones, Hollis, Hulsey, Hurst, Ingram, Jackson, Jones, Keel, Kirkland, Lamb, Lands, Lawrence, Lee, Lipscomb, Lomax, Lovern, Marcus, McCampbell, McClammy, Mooney, Moore M, Moore P, Morris, Myrex, Oliver, Paramore, Pascal, Pettis, Pringle, Rafferty, Ream, Reynolds, Rigsby, Robbins, Robertson, Ross, Sellers, Sells, Shaver, Shaw, Shiree, Simpson, Smith, Sorrells, Stodhagen, Standridge, Starnes, Stringer, Stubbs, Tillman, Travis, Treadaway, Underwood, Wadsworth, Warren, Whit, Wharton, Wilcox, Wood, R. Yarborough.
"59 members having answered the roll. A quorum is present. The House is ready to transact business. The chair recognizes the Speaker of the House for a special recognition.
Mr. Pro Tem, I ask for privilege of floor to our Sacred Harp Singers that's guest of ours today.
Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, floor privilege is granted. Mr. Speaker, you're further recognized.
Okay. If you were able to make the breakfast this morning, you heard this group sing. They are from my district, and a lot of you that travel the halls in the Senate, you've seen the pictures of the Liberty Hill four-note singers in that group, and they are a part of that church family, and I have the privilege of having them in my district. And some of you may recall, mentioned that this morning, the movie Coal Mountain that Nicole Kidman did, and some of these singers was in that movie singing this music. So I think it's a special treat. If you hadn't heard it before, it's something I think you'll thoroughly enjoy. To me, I told them this morning after our prayer breakfast, it kind of makes a hair stand up on my neck to hear it because they do such a great job, and it's an honor to have them with us today. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to them.
The speaker is further recognized for a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I have a time-sensitive resolution.
Are there any objections to suspending the rules? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Mr. Speaker, you are further recognized.
Yes, I would like for the clerk to read the resolution, please.
Clerk will read the resolution.
Whereas Ricky Dan Harcrow is hereby commended for his many years of dedicated service to the people of DeKalb County. And whereas Ricky Harcrow has rendered distinguished and faithful service to the residents of DeKalb County through decades of committed public leadership, culminating in his retirement from the DeKalb County Commission. And whereas born on January 28, 1951, to Jack and Zelma Harcrow, he developed a lifelong dedication to service, integrity, and community involvement that would define both his public and private life. And whereas Mr. Harcrow began his public service career in local government as a member of the Ider City Council from 1984 to 1986, and subsequently served as mayor of Ider beginning in 1986. And whereas in November 1998, Mr. Harcrow was elected to serve as DeKalb County Commissioner. In November 2010, he was elected president of the DeKalb County Commission, a role he fulfilled with distinction for 16 years. And whereas his influence extended beyond county borders when he served as president of the Alabama County Commissioners Association, further reflecting his statewide leadership and dedication to strengthening county government throughout Alabama. And whereas in addition to his elected service, Mr. Harcrow has contributed meaningfully to the economic and civic development of DeKalb County through roles such as Director of Tourism and through service on numerous local and state boards. And whereas throughout his career, Ricky Harcrow has been recognized as a man of integrity, diligence, and humility, whose leadership has positively impacted the lives of countless residents, and whose legacy of service will endure in DeKalb County for generations to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives by the Legislature of Alabama that we highly commend Ricky Dan Harcrow for his many years of public service, and this resolution hereby serves as a tribute to him with utmost gratitude and admiration, along with sincere best wishes for continued success in all future endeavors.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption.
All in favor of adoption, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted.
Ricky, don't you? Of course, standing up here at the front, I got to watch Ricky when this started. He didn't know anything about it. And it was a special from me to him and Susan because they're special to me. And I can't tell you how much he's meant to me through my lifetime. And matter of fact, and I thought about this, Ricky, you're the one that got me in this. I was at the office one day, and the lady up front called me and said, guy by the name Ricky Harcrow is here to see you. He was still the county commission president at that time. And he said, so he come on back to my office, and he said, man, I think you ought to run for the House of Representatives. He said, we need you in Montgomery. And he's the reason I'm here. But he has certainly been a dear friend of mine, and his retirement, he has left a legacy that the DeKalb Countyans can be proud of for generations to come. You know, nothing ever went astray. They always had their money and the budget right, no arguing and fussing, and God put him where he wanted him. And we're going to miss you, and they got big shoes to fill. So thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This indeed is a surprise to me. And as I'm not quitting. I'm just quitting what I'm doing. People in my county have been good to me. Mr. Speaker and I grew up in the same community, and I just don't know how to express my thanks to people like you who have helped us. Every one of you, like Joe and Brother Gidley and so many others that I've left out, Mr. Lamb and others, that we have just grown to be able to call on you. My motives may have been right, but my methods sometimes were wrong. But in all of that, if I had it all to do over, I'd go and encourage him to run. And I would encourage all of you to run because you're a great body. I know you get criticism. I've been through all of that. But I can tell you today that the Alabama legislature is my house. It is your house. And I am so thankful for you. And I trust if I had 1,000 lives to live over, I could live it with you all in this chamber. Thank you, and may God bless you.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee County, Chairman Lovern.
Mr. Speaker, I request that leaves of absence be granted for absent members.
Any objections? Hearing no objection, the absent members are excused. The chair further recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Mr. Speaker, I have a report.
House of Representatives, your Standing Committee on Rules begs leave to report that it has carefully examined the Journal of the House for the second legislative day and finds the same to be correct. Signed, Representative Joe Lovern, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the journal at length for the second legislative day be dispensed with.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, the reading of the journal is dispensed with. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Pro Tem Pringle, for purpose of making announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, there really are no announcements other than probably tomorrow you will get an email from the clerk's office with all the information about the tours next week for the House members. Keep looking for that email. It's going to come and hopefully it'll explain everything.
Mr. Pro Tem, you're further recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn today. We'll leave the journal open to allow the clerk to complete his paperwork. And then we reconvene on Tuesday, the 20th of January at 1 p.m., Tuesday, January 20th.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion prevails. Clerk now will receive reports of standing committees and receive those reports throughout the day. The House is now in position to introduce bills and resolutions. Clerk will call the first regular order calendar.
On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill number 95 with substitute by Representative Lovern relating to elections.
Chairman Lovern, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill that we voted for a couple times now in this chamber and passed, it just has not made it over the Senate hurdle that Debbie Wood has, would implement a post-election audit in our election system. The bill is filed would match what we did last year. I added one amendment in committee to make it match what the Senate committee did last year, so it is right in line with that. It does not change election results. It only checks them for the post-audit of the machines at random. And if no other questions, with that, I request to be IR.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Representative Bracy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was the gentleman you?
Yes, sir.
It would be fitting for us to be the first two of the year.
Oh, I'm honored.
I was, of course, I was in general fund yesterday, and I was thinking that this was the same bill from the past. It's my understanding that it may be some small changes, and then it was just mentioned that we have a substitute. We didn't vote on a substitute in committee, correct?
We added an amendment, and that will come to the floor as a committee substitute. That's why it appears that way, because of the way it rolls out of committee under our new rules. So
That's right, because to keep opposition from having an opportunity to have conversation about amendments, we just decided to just go ahead and do a substitute and roll all. So for instance, if it would have been multiple amendments, it would have just came as one sub instead of, correct? Is that what it?
Well, I don't agree with the first part of your statement, but that's the way our procedures work. We
Okay.
had the amendment. When I filed this for all the parties that are working in, I told them I would file it just like it ended last year, where people negotiate. And we'd left out one thing from the Senate, had put on there in committee, and so that's all we did in general fund yesterday was add that amendment back in.
What was that amendment?
Should be
If
happy
I'm not
to read.
mistaken, I remember that. I think Representative Sarah may have had that amendment.
That what it did is it replaced lines 59 through 61 that said the post-election audit shall commence no earlier than 31 days following the statewide general election or the expiration of the time period for filing an election contest, whichever is less, and shall be completed within 30 days of commencement. And so the probate judges are trying to make, and election officials are trying to make sure they're following all the steps that they have to follow in every procedure, and they didn't want this audit to impede in some of their procedures, and so.
Okay. So the outcome of this audit would be, this audit can't overturn an election, right? Because the
cannot.
election would already have happened and would have been certified, and they will kind of be going on through the process. So this audit would be to accomplish what if it's not to overturn an election?
It would be to primarily test the machine procedures that we're using, making sure everything's working right, and give some people the peace of mind that we're checking everything we can behind. This doesn't do a huge impact on the election officials as far as a burden, but it does give one more step towards just making sure everyone is and everything is working correctly to make sure we get the correct results like the people deserve, just like your election, my election.
Okay. So who pays for this audit?
The state would pay for it, so there's no burden on the county.
Okay. So what's the fiscal note for?
Fiscal note is $35,000 per day. And
Per day?
most people are saying this shouldn't take past 1 day. So that's statewide $35,000, which is not a huge cost for that assurance of make sure our machines are working correctly.
Okay, so the $35 would cover, $35,000 would cover what, a county being able to do it? Or because, we have counties of different sizes.
Sure.
So is that like the highest cost, or is that the average cost?
They will put in for reimbursement for those officials that are brought in to help with that audit, and that's where those expenses will be put in there, and then the general fund would pay for that. So there's no burden on the counties.
So it's a reimburse type thing.
Right, it's in part of their expenses, just like any election. They fill out their expenses where they've had to bring in poll watchers, they've had to bring in different election officials.
Right.
And all part of that cost.
Right. What about for the counties? Because your county and my county may have more resources than some other counties when it comes to being able to put up upfront money for this. And they may not be able to afford to put this up. Is this something that's mandatory for the county to do?
This will be mandatory.
So once it's selected, it would be mandatory. What if they don't have the resource? Everybody can't wait on a check to come back. Everybody can't wait to put up resources up front. Sometimes people, they may need assistance. Will we be able to step in for some of our poorer counties? Because I know our county, mine and your county probably can do it.
I'm not sure exactly how that process works through the Secretary of State's office with our elections, but I feel confident that they already are going to be incurring the expenses from the election, and this would just be a little add-on to what they need to do to complete this post-election audit. So I don't foresee that being a major problem. Even in our poorest counties, they still have to run these elections, and they still have these people in place. This is just one more day, and in a smaller county probably would be even less of time during that day with even less expense.
Right, because I guess some counties do have less people. Like I met a gentleman last night, a county commissioner, a fine gentleman from Crenshaw County, told me that his county was 3 red light county with 3 red lights, 13,000 people. His first name was Stallion. I can't think of his last name, but he was just a fine young man. He was with the nursing home. He's with Alpha, with the Nursing Home Association and others. And we just having a conversation, and we talked about the counties. And when he mentioned that his county was 13,000 people, it just made me automatically start thinking like, wow, 13,000 in a county, no Walmart, so tax base very low, 3 red lights in the entire county, 5 county commissioners, part-time. And I was like, oh, wow. Those kind of like, do we want to, is it a way that this could be set up that if you can't, that it's some type of way to have I guess, not necessarily a waiver, but to allow something to be in place for people that just may not, and I'm not saying that his county can't, but you may have a county of similar size in another area of the state that can't, because I think his county probably can, but.
Well, you live in a very populous county. I live in a big shiny city on the hill, Lee County now, but I'm from Randolph County, a very rural, even smaller than what you're talking about.
And I'm from Clark. My family's from Clark County.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Thomas Jackson is my representative.
Well, it's some people wonder how far they have to drive to see a Walmart. I wonder how far I have to drive to see people, in some areas of that county. But, there's always, those counties are finding a way. But the less people means there'll be smaller boxes, meaning there'll be a smaller impact, so it'll be a smaller cost when it comes to this. So when you look at the scale, it'll actually favor them because they should have less of an impact.
So the 35,000 probably be more like 5 or something a lot less.
Well, we're talking about 35,000 statewide, so it's not county per county. So we're talking about a very small cost. There's all types of certifications, there's inspections, there's every steps with
Now,
this.
that's confusing. Now, the 35,000 statewide, but every county wouldn't be doing the audit, right?
Every county will do their own audit. Yeah.
Doing it
So
at the exact same time, or would it be randomly selected?
That they will do their random selections within their county, but every county will be doing it.
Okay, so every county will do the audit, but the county would do a random selection of what boxes within the county
Correct.
to do the audits.
Correct.
Okay, would that make a little bit more sense? Who will make the random selection? Like, how would you be able to target what areas would be selected for this?
That'd be with the election official for the county.
Okay,
and
so
then
the
there's
probate court or the probate judge would decide which boxes that they want to be audited.
Well, they would be picked at random, and then there's steps in place in the bill for the findings. If you see on page 2, line 53, it gives a beginning of what that audit would look like, and then it rolls through all the way down to where what that report needs to do and the conclusion of it on line 62, and the things that are
Let me ask you
presented
one
as
last
labeled
question.
as a
'Cause
record of
I have
audit.
about 10 seconds left. Let me ask you just one last question.
Sure.
Assuming each of the 67 required audits take 1 day, that's a total of $2,345,000. Would that be accurate, or is that not accurate?
The gentleman's time has expired.
It's not.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Henry. Representative Ream.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Lever, and I just want to thank you for bringing this bill. We have an issue in which our constituents, and it's not just in Alabama, all over across this country, are losing confidence in our elections. What type of price do you put such a low number to make this happen, to be able to instill confidence in our elections? I thank you for bringing this bill, and I'm here to support it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for the recognition. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
So you Sacred Heart singer, huh? I want to ask, what prompted you to bring this bill?
Well, there's Representative Debbie Wood that we serve
last
with
year, yep.
has been passionate to work this. There's a lot of passion in Lee County for just making sure we've got all the gaps sealed that we can to make sure our elections are doing correctly, that our machines are working correctly. And so I agreed to pick up that torch and continue the discussion to help give people that we serve that peace of mind.
You have researched that there's been some problems in the state election system.
I couldn't hear that part.
Do you have research data
Well,
to show that there is a problem with our election system?
we did a pilot program that did find a discrepancy, and so there's not a lot of publicity about that, and it doesn't necessarily know exactly what that discrepancy looks like, but we're using machines to run our elections.
Right.
That we just need to make sure we're working for your voters, my voters, so we can look and tell them we're doing everything we can within reason at the lowest cost we can, so there's not a huge impact on the state, to try to make sure that we are doing fair and honest and correct elections.
Well, that's what we tried to do with the early voting bill
Yeah. Wow.
for the constituents, to help them understand that our system is trained toward the constituency, not for those that are elected. They're the ones that make decisions to elect.
Yeah.
So we happen to be the candidate, and we don't purpose them to. We don't choose them; they choose us. So that's what that was all about, and I understand that what you're coming from with this, because Ms. Wood said there was a little small percentage, and she won by what, 1 or 2 votes. back then, and you, but that's not an automatic recount when that percentage is down there. Is this what this going to do?
It's not. This
Put
will-
everybody in an automatic recount.
This will not overturn the election, but it would help identify if we really have a problem. And so I'm hoping we don't. And I hope we can just use this to prove to people that we don't have a onslaught of problems and give people confidence in our voting system even more.
We want to make sure that they can trust the system, because there's so much advocacy now against the system. It's rigged and all that, but I have never found that to be the case here. And when you use those blatant language like that, you put a distrust in the people. It's just like one politician might be a bad politician. They paint the brush everybody. But we need to pinpoint where the issues are and try to correct those issues where they are, and not make it where it's universal or statewide. So this is going to cost a couple $1 million.
No, that's not what the fiscal note prepared. The cost that they estimated would be $35,000 per day. So you
Well, how many days?
Most counties should be able to do it in a day. There may be some bigger counties that may have an issue that rolls into a second day, but this should be very quick, should be very easy to do. And then you already have your election officials who have already been paid to be part of this election. So the costs are very minimal to have this procedure in place.
Well, I don't have a problem with the procedure, because I want people to know that their vote counts.
Absolutely. And we agree on that.
And that's been the issue with so many of us, that, well, my vote don't count, because somebody has spreaded that falsehood. And I tell them the only reason your vote don't count, you don't cast it. And when you don't cast your vote, it can't count. But here we have an opportunity to rectify, if there is an issue, like in at a machine, that we can find out the problem and pinpoint the problem and go back through with a recount. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if we identify problems, then we can start eliminating what those problems are.
But do we have the
Look
problem
further.
already identified?
I don't know.
That's why we're going to do an audit.
No, we're going to make sure. It's, we have audits on taxes, we have audits on associations, we have different things that we do to make sure and that everything is done the way it should be with different organizations, with different procedures. So I'm glad this is something we could both agree on.
I think about this bill being a little contradictory to what has been proposed by your party, and I know sometimes we say things and we do things accordingly to others, but then when it comes down to individualizing our situations, if it's going to affect us, then we're going to make sure that we are protected. But I don't like to see that this bill would do the opposite of what you're trying to do. It would reduce people's trust in election results, because they'll say, well, the election didn't make sense because we had to go back and audit all. And why would I vote if they got to keep changing things? Why are we so adamantly not to help people to realize that we are doing their bidding for them while we're here, and not our bidding? But you said your constituent asked this, right? Or is this a party, or this is your constituent stuff?
Well, there's a lot of people in my area that are passionate about election integrity, just like I'm sure people are in your district. And I'm passionate about it. We all want to have integrity in our elections, and this is just one more step to make sure that mechanically, that physically, everything that's a part of our election, this is just one more step to just make sure that we're checking what we can. This is not very invasive. It's not a huge procedure, but it's a toe in the door to make sure we're looking and making sure these machines are working correctly, votes are being tabulated correctly, and if there's a problem, let's identify it and let's address it and make sure it's correct, because I want everybody that votes for Thomas Jackson this year to make sure their vote counts and is counted correctly.
Well, they always have.
I hope so.
And there hasn't been any problem with that. But see, when you talk about, there was our constituency that wanted to vote early.
Well, not everybody wins in a landslide like Thomas Jackson. You know, just sweep the area. But sometimes
One
the
vote
elections can be
is a
very
win.
close.
One vote is a win. That's all we look for, just to win. But there are some people don't want to stand in line for that process. They want to do it a little earlier than that, and that's what we've been trying to do for the last 20 years, trying to get them to do that. I mean, so all the seniors that they want just in a day. And what you said, all the counties, probate judges put a day out there that they can come show up, but it didn't want no cost this much. But I see where we are. We friends. We're gonna continue to be. I love you because you're a brother, and I have to because I want to see the master. Up there, we say in Him we trust. But we got to just do what's like you said on playing field visually that we can really doing what we best for what our people asked us to do, not what personally I want done. And that's the bottom line of this whole thing.
Sure.
Integrity. And we got to show it, and we got to do it, and we got to act up on it, and not just saying it, but go by what we are doing. People watch what we do rather than what we say. And so I want to thank you for not bringing it, but I'm thanking you for being the person that you are. And we're going to work together. We're going to get some things done, and I'm still going to drop my bill. Still going to ask you to support me on those things. And I thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Appreciate you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Blackshear. Be the fourth person to speak on the BIR.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. And Chairman Levin, thanks for continuing this down the path. We've worked through this bill through our former Lee County colleague several times. And really thanks to Chairman Reynolds for working through it, making sure we understood the true impact to the budget as well, too. And I think that a bill like this will pay dividends long term. So you don't have to look, take the federal stuff out, look in the state. The last couple election cycles, we've had a couple individuals close in our area, right? That are won by combined 4 votes in 2 different elections. So I'm sure if we're on that other side, we want to make sure that the elections and the machines were actually audited and that we're counting correctly. So appreciate you continuing this and trying to get this bill across the finish line.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is the adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote, 70 ayes, 9 nays. The BIR has been adopted. Chairman Lovren.
Hey, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the committee sub.
Okay, Curie, explain your sub, please.
Absolutely. We just added one amendment in committee to put it in line with where it died in the Senate last year out of committee. And all this amendment does is put it to help our election officials push this past the 30 days of the contested time. So this bill would not overturn any election. This would just be an audit to where it would test the machines in the process. So that's all there is with that amendment.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the amendment. Do I have anybody who wants to speak on the amendment directly? Okay. The chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Van, speaking on the amendment.
Representative Lovren, I missed what you said in your explanation of the amendment. What could you recite it again, please?
Sure. There's a lot of parties interested in either side of this bill, and some of the work through over the last couple of sessions, well, really the last 3 sessions, there was some language that helped people feel more comfortable as we're moving through this process. And in Senate committee, there was an amendment added, and I wanted people to know exactly where this bill had died last year, and we would come right back where we were so people feel comfortable on either side of the issue. And what all this did was put in that language, the post-election audit shall commence no earlier than 31 days following the statewide general election or the expiration of the time period for filing an election contest, whichever is less, and shall be completed within 30 days of the commencement. So that's all it did.
So whichever is less. I remember this bill last year, I know, because I think I did have questions on it. But let me ask this, and I guess with the amendment, did you speak with first of all, I don't know if you've even spoken with any of the probate judges, number one.
I
Because I know
have.
you're speaking of the members of the Senate where it died in committee for the lack of time. But have you spoken with any of the probate judges? Because I think one of the biggest consternations about this piece of legislation, I know last year was, because every county is different. And we know that. I mean, whether you're in the smallest of counties, whether you're in the largest of counties, things are done slightly different in those counties with regards to elections. All things, unfortunately, are not universal in how processes unfold. So my question to you, since you said there were many people who had whatever, have you spoken with probate judges relative to this particular issue? Because I don't think anyone has spoken to any of the probate judges in Jefferson County.
I've spoken to several probate judges, and people always wonder, how do you find out information of where people are on a bill? Well, the best way is just to file it, and then people will reach out to you, and that's what we've had, is a lot of conversations about the process. This has been worked on for years, and a lot of the real sticking points have been worked out on both sides. And not saying everyone loves it, but some people are happy with some issues. Some people feel like it doesn't go far enough. But this is a workable product that's minimal impact on those election officials.
Okay, my question was simple, I just wanted to know whether or not, since you had said you had been in communications with individuals, and again, I know last year, I don't think anyone had spoken, or the last session with the probate judges in Jefferson regarding this bill. This bill in Jefferson County, of course, is still the largest county. And I've always taken issue, especially on anything judicial of any sort. I just feel like you should speak to those individuals, and anything relative to these elections. I've said this for 16 years. I feel that the registrars should be at the table and the probate judges, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who facilitate these processes and have that task to do so under our, the governance of this state. And so my biggest concern, I think, last year about the entire process, I'm glad you did bring the amendment relative to the timing, because I did question the timing. So I have, no problem with that. I just had a problem more or less with having input from those individuals that do this work of this kind, and especially in Jefferson, with Jefferson being the largest county. And I took issue, I think, with it last year, and I certainly will take issue with it this year. It's very difficult, again, to move these types of processes, period. As I think some of my colleagues said, knowing the resources of these counties and things of that nature, everything varies from county to county. And so I just would have liked since we've had some time in the off season, for someone to at least have spoken. Because I'm not gonna know unless my probate judge says, hey, you all, this, that, and other. And this bill is just coming back up in the last 24 to 48 hours. So as it relates to getting it out of committee and advancing it on, I'm assuming.
Well, I have not talked to the probate judge of Jefferson County, just open disclosure. I've talked to several, I've talked to people that represent them, and they made several more requests for different things, and some things I didn't feel like we necessarily needed in this goal of what we're trying to do. But I've listened to a lot of their concerns and implemented a lot of these things.
Who did you speak with that represents Jefferson County?
No, represent probate judges.
That represent Jefferson County?
No, I've not talked to the
You
probate
did-
judge
you-
for
in
Jefferson
Jefferson,
County.
okay, I
but
got
I've
you,
talked
okay.
to several people that are very knowledgeable that speak on behalf of a lot of the probate judges, and several probate judges, just as far as their association, they met and had calls on this bill this year and had discussions, and so there's a lot of information between them being shared around.
Okay, all right, well,
And
again.
they brought some great ideas and some great thoughts and impact, and really is what molded this bill is their impact over the last 3 years.
Okay. Well, this is my thought on it, and especially when you say that, and it's no disrespect to any probate judges. Jefferson County is the only, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the probate judge has to be have a doctorate of jurisprudence, has to be a lawyer. In a lot of the smaller towns, it's a little bit slightly different. The rules, they do not have to be practicing attorneys or members of the bar, number one. No disrespect to any of those individuals. But when you have a county as large as Jefferson, with the requirements slightly different, I do feel, and I've said this again, for about 15 years, I just feel like someone should make that effort because I can tell you these probate judges are not speaking on behalf of Jefferson County. I've been here long enough and I've seen it too many times, unless depending on who the judge is. And we now have I think two different judges now that were elected, and they are Democratic judges, number one, and two females, and they are black. Number one, so I know how that game down here works, and I mean, we're just talking straight talk. We know how it works. So the realization is, I would appreciate as we move forward, and I'm not sure who, and I will speak with both of our probate judges, our chief judge in Jefferson County, to make sure that they understand how these processes, especially with these elections, work, and who rules and runs those processes, so they can maybe make sure that when these issues come up, that they are at the table to have some kind of conversation instead of waking up on election day or just as they're preparing their people for election day and the election commission and all of that on what these processes are. I just think that this needs to be something, and again, this is not my first time saying this, and it certainly will not be the last. So with that being said, I appreciate the opportunity to chit chat, and at least I thank you for your honesty, most important.
Yes, ma'am. Always.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Chair thanks the lady. Is anybody else on the amendment? Question for the body is the adoption of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 83 ayes, 3 nays. The amendment has been adopted. Chairman Lovern.
With that, move for final adoption.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marengo, Reverend McCampbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Gentleman, you.
Yes, sir.
I know we had this in our committee yesterday, and of course, first committee meeting, I didn't get a chance to actually look at the bill. I think about last year, I think one of my concerns was what the random selection process was going to be like. Because we'd hoped that a random selection process would be an objective, type of process. But I've found out that any objective process can be made subjective by those that are doing it, if they choose to. So that's what concerns me. I don't want it. And I'm being very blunt about how I say this. I don't want it being a situation where we are deciding that we want to target a certain group of people, black people in particular. I don't want it to be set up where that's the process that can happen, because that's not fair. I want a situation where if it's going to be an objective, random selection process, that we are taking everything that could identify particular boxes and precincts out of the mix. So how are we going to do that?
Sure. On, I know you don't know if you have your bill there, but
I left it.
on line 37, it says how that process would transact. The canvassing board of each county at noon on the second Friday after any county statewide general election shall randomly select at least one precinct, excluding absentee and provisional ballots, and at least one statewide or countywide race to be audited by the judge of probate. So,
Okay, what's the process of the randomly selected? I think we need to identify a process for them that we can hold them accountable for. I don't have any problems with the bill per se, but I do have a problem with the process, and I want that process to be a fair process.
certainly. Well,
So-
each county has their own canvassing board and has their own, so it's very localized, personal. So that impact you can have locally by reaching out and making suggestions on that.
Mr. Speaker, do we have some more speakers? I want to get something that would further direct the random selection process. So, because after I thought about it, after I finally read the bill again, I didn't see it in there, and I understand how things can actually, good intentions can be turned into things that are diabolical for some other people. So I'm going to, and you do what you have to do, but I'm going to try and get something that'll give a little more clarity to the random process. And I'd ask some of these smart attorneys to help me with this, because I'm not sure how to do it, but I do think we need a little bit more direction in that process.
Well, you have a suggestion on that beyond our local canvassing board?
Well, if it was up to me, I'd say we'd put each one of the boxes in a hat. I'm going to be very, and it's by chance. It's not, you don't have anything that where you are then saying this group of people could prejudice the selection process by deciding, okay, we want this one or we want that one. But if we put them all in a hat, and that's, I know it's simplified.
Whose hat?
Well, I will buy a hat for all 67 counties, and they can put it in the Alabama hat.
Yeah.
But if that makes sense, that's all. That's when I thought about it after reading it again. That would be my concern. Is a little bit more direction.
Well, we try to not overstep in things that we do. And so leaving some things open. And what about this? What if I commit to you that if we are able to move down this process, this is a toe in the door, getting our toe in the door on our post-election audit process. If you foresee or see a problem that is happening in this process that you think canvassing boards are not doing that randomly correctly, then let's come back and add something to that process.
The only fear I have there is once it's out of this house and it's localized, we don't get any feedback on what their process is. That's my problem with it. like I said, I think it's a good idea after really thinking about it. But when you see the possibility of some problems, I think it behooves us to take a look at that up front and try to correct it before it happens. You know, I think I addressed this last year to the representative then. I think it was a concern I had then. I didn't look into it as deep, but after yesterday and then looking at it last night, I said I didn't see something that was truly objective. I saw something that would have the intentions of being objective, but not truly objective. So I'm not trying to hold it up. I'm really trying to make sure that we have something that's going to take care of a concern.
And I appreciate your thoughts on that. I kind of disagree. I feel like we have gaps in place that are with our election officials where this canvassing board can come up with their own whatever process works best for them. And I really, drawing out the hat's probably what they will do. That's what I would suggest if I was in the room.
Well, you know, and we are in the room right now. And that's what I'm suggesting that we suggest to them, is that it is a true random process.
And that's what we say in this bill, is for them to randomly select. If someone walks in the room and says, we're doing this box, this, and this, then that's not necessarily random. But this canvassing board will have to discuss how are we choosing this box that we're going to do at random, and what's that process look like? I'm a believer in the local people for that.
You actually made my point for me. If somebody walks in that room and says, this is what we're going to do, if somebody has that kind of power that they think they can go in there and do that, more than likely they can, and it does not become a random process.
Well,
but if we give direction within the bill, I think then we secure what we are trying to do.
Well, it's to give the local people the opportunity to do what they want to do, to make sure their whole process of everything's working. And we're adding another step in there with a post-election audit. It's not going to affect the election at all. It's just going to test our apparatus that we're using to do our process. So it's not going to affect any election. So even if it was a election named, it's not going to change that election. So you're not given that type of an impact.
Okay, and my time is up right now, so I may have to come back. All right.
The chair thanks the gentleman. The chair recognizes the lady from Macon, Representative Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect to my chairman and the hard work that you are trying to do, you know, for a long time I've been around here, and when I see a problem, I don't give up on it. I keep fighting, and I keep fighting, and I keep fighting. I started a new fight. I'm just going to share it with you today. When I look at your bill and I see what you're doing, and at a cost of about $2 million to have this administered, it disturbs me, because my concern is, where are our priorities? Is this so important that it had to be the first bill on the calendar today? What? I don't need to answer it. I don't think so. I think we need to revamp where we are. And in the state of Alabama, our first priority needs to be mental illness. If we can put $2 million on an election and allow as many people as we have in Alabama walking around the street mentally ill and not taking care of that issue, I think our priorities are out of order. And as we go through these bills, and I know serving on the general fund, Rex knows where I am, the speaker knows where I am with mental illness, we got to really go back and reevaluate our values. Because when I see this, and this is the first thing we're discussing this morning, it's very disturbing to me. Because like I said, I don't know if we had that many fraudulent elections in the state. I think we had an audit at one time and we couldn't find anything. Every time I hear they can't find anything wrong with the elections. But for us to sit here today and to do this, and to be honest with you, I have no problem with this. I really don't. Because I think people should be held accountable for whatever they do. My concern is where we are with dealing with the real issues that we have in this state. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, the fact this bill's first is, speaking of random, is completely random about how it's about how the bills came from committee report yesterday. I even spoke to people this morning. I said I was embarrassed my bill's first because I did not intend for that, but it just happened. Yes, we have problems with mental health, and I know we've all been around. We're doing a lot of things for it, and there's different priorities. There's some confusion with this cost. The fiscal note is $35,000 cumulative for the state, not per county, is what we were told by the fiscal office. So the cost is minimal to the general fund.
So this is just the 3,500 is for the whole 67
per
counties.
day. So if there is goes into a larger day with another county for some reason, that I don't want to say that that's not maybe some additional cost, but the overall cost is very minimal for the peace of mind that we will have from testing the machines that do your election, my election, all of our elections, just to know that post-election, here's one more step that these are working correctly. And if they're not, we need to address it and make sure they are.
Like I said, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
It's just disturbing when I saw this and I see that how we're jumping out here, on this. And like I say, right now, I'm gonna carry this mental health until I can see that we are taking care of our mentally ill people. We have enough beds to deal with their issues, because it really disturbs me to know that we are paying $1 billion to get prisons built and not doing anything of a substantial value to try to house and take care of our mental people in the state of Alabama. So that's
Well, and I'm sorry for the confusion with that, but the fiscal note is nowhere near that number. So it's very minimal. In fact, I would have a lot of other concerns myself, and I'm sure the general fund chairman would have had a lot of questions for this level of expense. So.
Well, I'm glad you explained, because when I saw it, it was written as $2 million and something.
And I just got clarification through the clerk's office to read it exactly the same.
Okay.
So as that would
All
be
right.
there.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to you working with me this year, making sure we can take care of the mentally ill in the state of Alabama.
I appreciate it. Look forward to it as well.
Okay, thanks.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Montgomery, Representative Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I told you yesterday I was waiting, right?
I know.
And here we
Honored.
are, first bill.
I know.
So I just have a couple of questions. So I was just listening, and
Representative Gavan had made a statement, about Jefferson County probate judge having to have a Juris Doctorate. That's the same thing in Montgomery County. I wish, because it's called probate judge, I don't know why all of the judges are not required to have a law degree, because you are judging in some form estate affairs and things like that. So that might be something that we need to actually look at, especially if we're gonna make them be reliable for a lot of different things. Do you think that?
I fully disagree with that.
Why?
Because there's a lot of probate judges that are not attorneys that are fully qualified to do the job they do. In fact, what they do sometimes, the legal training, it would be beneficial. I don't disagree with that, but there are limits to what they do. And if anything goes beyond that, then they hand it off to the court system. And I fully disagree with making it mandatory, because it really narrows your pool of people, too.
So that's what we're gonna say. It narrows the pool, but it doesn't make you qualified. The application make you qualified. So if it says that you have to have a Juris Doctorate, then the pool would be slim, but
it would be.
Making you qualified is what we put in place.
Well, there's stops in place where once you reach a certain point, then you have to hand it off to a court system. So,
and if you talk to a lot of people in the courts, they'll tell you that the information, once we started hiring or making sure that they have Juris Doctorates, that the information started coming in completed. You don't have to go back over the paperwork constantly. So if you're going to have just the courts doing the paperwork, then we should just use the courts instead of a probate judge. But I was just responding to that part. So with the audit, how would the audit be conducted, and how would the probate judge ask for the audit? Would it be per county? Every time we have an election, is it per county, or how would that actually go?
You have your bill with you there?
No.
Okay. All right. Notwithstanding any other law in the country, the judge of probate of each county shall order a post-election audit after every countywide, statewide general election. So during the general, of all ballots in one precinct of a countywide or statewide race randomly selected by the canvassing board of each county as further provided, subdivision 2, which appeared on the ballot, which is not subject to recount. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the judge of probate from ordering the audit of additional precincts or races. The order shall include the name of the precincts and the races to be audited. The order shall be authorized the sheriff or other county authority to provide access to the ballot containers along with any other necessary election materials, including the electronic data. The canvassing board of each county at noon the second Friday after any county or statewide general election shall randomly select at least one precinct, excluding the absentee and provisional ballots, and at least one statewide or countywide race to be audited by the judge of probate.
Okay, so because I heard you say that it is not gonna cost like the $2 million. So let's just say if it costs $35,000, per day. So each county, which is 67 counties, if each county do an audit one day, 67 counties times 35,000, what are we gonna come up with?
No. Cumulative 35,000 statewide.
Okay, so regardless, so we don't know how much it is, like per county. It's just 35,000 total.
If it's a larger county that has a larger box that's randomly selected, it may take a little bit longer. Our smaller counties may have a smaller box that was randomly selected, and it may just take a minute amount of time. So that cost will vary, but based on the estimates, that's what we would estimate statewide per day for that to cost.
Okay, so it's not 35,000 per day.
Per day, but not per county. It's for the state.
Okay, so per day you're gonna divide the 35,000 depends on the amount of time that it takes per precinct
Correct.
to be able to count the votes.
Correct.
Okay. So about the canvassing board, how do we come up with the county canvassing board?
Okay. All right. The canvassing board of each county at noon on the second Friday after any county or statewide general elections shall randomly select at least one precinct. Okay. Excluding absentee provisional ballots, at least one statewide or countywide race to be altered by the judge of probate.
Okay, so but who is the canvassing board?
That's set up through other electional laws and processes for each county. So,
Okay, well, I want to thank you for answering my questions.
well, thank you
Those
for
are
bringing them.
the questions that I actually had. I don't really understand like why we have to bring this, especially right now. It's like we making it seem that there are a lot of mishaps inside of the elections. And when I turn around and I look, especially right here in Alabama, you all are in the supermajority, so I just be trying to figure out is, you know, if it was some discrepancies, like who are you actually looking at? That's just me.
I assure you, from my standpoint, your election is just as important as mine, and the people that are voting for us deserve the right to know that everything that's in our part of our process is working correctly.
I remember listening to Representative Debbie Woods tell her story about the 6 votes that she made it to the House with, and I made it by 8 votes. So that's why I know that every vote actually count, and I do believe in our process. Thank you.
I do as well. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, lady. It's your recognized the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Glory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to be recognized so that I can speak.
It's an honor for hearing you speak, too.
I know it. I just
Always,
I
always.
appreciate it. Representative,
Yes, ma'am.
and I've been listening to people that come up here, and one question somebody was asking about how your bill got to be first. And I told them, well, when I first came to the legislature, what we did the first couple of weeks, we were a committee of the whole. And we dealt with bills as they were introduced. And that gave the committees at least 2 weeks to meet and be able to come up with a calendar. But we just dealt with bills as they were introduced as a committee of the whole. But since 2010, we have not done that. The other thing I've heard people talk about is integrity of the machines. So do you know the practice of how those machines are put into polling places? Because I can tell you that when those machines are first put into a precinct, they are tested then to make sure that they are at 0. And so, and on election day, when the precinct captain comes in, they will test the machine again. Now, at the 2022 election, I had some problems because you all passed a bill to change that process. Prior to 2022, at the end of the day, we would connect the telephone cord to the machine, and the votes were transmitted automatically to the probate judge office for the original count. And in that process, after they did that, then the precinct captain would box up the ballots, run the machines, post the vote on a door or where the public could see it. But in 2022, when once you zero the machine, there was a flash drive, and you take that flash drive at the end of the day, run the votes, copy it to the flash drive. That flash drive is put in a brown envelope, taken to the probate office. They have a series of computers where then they would take that flash drive, put it on the computer that's designated. My question with the changes that you made then is I zeroed the machine, but I don't know what's on that flash drive, nor do I know what's on that computer that you put that flash drive on at the end of the day. So if there was some discrepancies after 2022 or at 2022, it was a discrepancy that you all created. The other thing that I'd like to put on the table is this. Prior to this thought that there was some corruption or fraud in elections, the majority of the time our Secretary of States were Republicans. So the question I ask, is it that you don't trust the Secretary of State? And in most counties, the person that's over the voting, the probate judge, 9 times out of 10, that person was Republican too. So you don't, the question is, did you not trust them? Because up until 2010 and after, we had laws on the books for elections that addressed any type of discrepancy that we had. So those laws weren't sufficient to prevent corruption in your eyesight and somebody else's eyesight?
I'm not making any accusation of corruption, and it's nonpartisan. Your election's just as important as mine.
Yeah, but I believe that the people that's working in my precinct, I believe they're honest people. I believe that the Secretary of State is following the guidelines put forth for an election. I believe that the probate judge is following the laws of Alabama as it relates to election. And I've not heard of just broad discrepancies during the election until after 2010, and specifically after 2015. I've not heard of it because in the past, Alabama's Constitution already had within it laws to deal with any type of discrepancy that we have. When you talk about integrity, integrity would imply that that the rules and regulations are not being followed if you are trying to protect the integrity. It's always been protected. The laws of Alabama as it relate to elections have already taken care of any problems. And I don't know how long you've been involved with elections, but I've been involved with elections since 1970. And that's with Democrat, Republican governors, Democrat, Republican Secretary of States. And in some cases, we've had cases in the past, but the laws as it relate to elections in the state of Alabama, we were able to take care of them and to define if there was a discrepancy or if something happened in the process of that election that should not have happened. So at the end of the day, I don't think that this is the type problem that you need to look at. Now, second of my concerns has been, and I've mentioned it to Congressman Palmer, and I brought it to this floor quite a few times, that during a presidential election, I've always noticed, because I cover, even before I got to be the representative in the district that I live, I've always covered all of those polling places to make sure that things were going okay. Now, what I did have noticed, during a presidential election in the city of Birmingham, I could be specific, several polling places that used to be predominantly white polling places, but the white residents have moved out and they're leasing those properties to other people now. What I noticed is that on election day, and it goes as far back as last year's election, 2024 election, that I went to several polling places. I saw more white people there than live in the neighborhood. And as I asked before, why haven't I seen this number of whites that used to live in the neighborhood showing back up at the election time? One guy told me, I said, where do you live? He said, I live in that house right there on the corner. I said, well, no, you can't live in that house because my classmate lives in that house. He said, but we rent the house to him. He lived in St. Clair County. He voted that morning in St. Clair County for the president, and he still used the address in Jefferson County to come to Jefferson County and vote a second time in the presidential election. Now, I have brought that to the attention of our congressman. I brought that to this floor 7 times. We're not looking from county to county to see if a person has the ability to vote in several counties during an election period. But we would take monies that we need to put indoor plumbing in some communities throughout the state. We're taking the monies that we need, even if it's $1, to develop some of our counties so that they can have a better tax base. But we would question the integrity of an election. We would rather do that than to provide health care, to provide better job opportunities for the citizens of Alabama, to provide better housing for the citizens for the state of Alabama. There has not been any questions because they've been answered already in the Alabama Constitution. And it just disturbs me that it appears that our national leaders could tell a lie about elections, and all of the states that support that leader will come back and pass bills to support a lie. So what we're basically saying when we bring these types of bills is that there has been some flaws in the laws for the state of Alabama as it relates to elections.
And the lady's time has expired.
Thank you so very much, and
Yes,
it was
ma'am.
an honor for you to honor me.
Yes, ma'am. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I was I saw an article that says we're throwing rocks trying to figure out our budgets this year because of such a budget shortfall. So I was trying to wrap my head around the affordability or the lack of the affordability of this particular piece. $35,000, and I guess from my colleague Bracy, made that statement as he was leaving. So $35,000 divided by 67 counties is $522.38. That may work for a small county with a handful of people, but what about your larger counties, Jefferson and Mobile and Huntsville and those counties? If you pick one precinct, it's still going to be, a lot of people or a lot of voters or a large mass of accounting to audit one precinct. I can't digest $522.38 per county.
It may cost one county $50 because it's so quick and easy. It may cost one county $2,000. That's just an average based on the size. They already have all these things in place. This is just one more small step. So the added cost is just not that great for a post-election audit as we put in this bill.
So it would be interesting to see how many of the small counties would be $50, but how many of the larger counties or even medium-sized counties would be more than $522.38.
Sure.
And especially in light of where we are and what we have to deal with, especially with this budget and the constraints that we have and that we're facing. I'm just not too sure if this is really the most cost-effective
procedure in this time frame and in this season.
Well, anybody, and with all due respect, anybody that thinks spending $35,000 for one more step measure to make sure we give confidence to the people that are voting through these voting machines that they're working correctly by doing a post-election audit just to verify that the votes tallied is being done correctly with that machine. I think there's some things we can't afford to do. I think there's some things we can't afford not to do. And with the minimal cost for this, I don't see, I've been on a budget committee ever since I got down here. I'm tight budget hog, I understand. But this is a minimal cost for peace of mind for all of us and all the people we represent, that we're doing everything we can to just prove that this is working correctly. Have confidence in this. And here's a post-election audit, just one more little step to prove to people that that is correct statement.
You know, and I've heard statistics stated that we have probably one of the best elections process in the country, in the state of Alabama, to where there's, you know, very, 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 very tiny election impropriety. But
Then let's prove it then. Let's prove it. You know? Why not show proof of it? Perfect. I appreciate your support and vote and great comments. So thank you for your time.
We would really pinpoint, especially in this time, in this season, that we would pinpoint those things that affect all Alabamians, not just in their voting process, but also within their livelihood and within their pockets, you know, to make their lives more affordable on this state. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Excuse me, you're on my time. Thank you. I just want to make sure that I have an understanding of the bill and the process. And I know that it's stating that post-election audits in every county after every statewide and county election. And I used to be, I am a former auditor. So I want to understand who determines the audit and why, and then what is the actual process?
Who determines the audit?
And why?
This bill would determine that post-election audit had to be completed.
So for each county, is this like automatic?
Yes.
So after each election,
Each general election.
each county, so is it spot checked or is just every county?
Each county would have to select randomly one precinct.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So that's how do they do that? Is that by a calculation on which county is chosen?
Every county has to do it.
Right.
So every
But
county.
who determines what precinct?
The canvassing board, which would be the that's the sheriff, the circuit clerk, and the probate judge. I
And they
believe.
would use auditors in order to determine which precinct.
They would select randomly as a canvassing board, and then the process is spelled out in the bill of how that audit would do, and then their findings are then presented in a compilation to the Secretary of State.
Okay.
And this would not overturn any election. This would not be part of that contested process. This is just to test our process.
So this is not a challenging process.
It's not a challenging process. It's very
You know,
easy.
like sometimes when, you know,
contesting,
someone may not
right.
agree with the count,
Right.
then they may challenge it. but this is not, this is more of accountability.
Correct. This is all about accountability that we can show for your election, my election, and everyone that votes in our election.
Okay, so once that precinct is chosen, so it's a manual count?
Well, that process is spelled out right here.
It's already electronic.
They can take those same ballots, feed it back through the machine, and get their audit right here. So the judge will probate.
It's not necessarily manually counted. So who determines if it goes back through the machine or is being manually counted?
Let's see. All right, let's start with the beginning of the audit process, okay? All right, you got your bill,
I don't have the bill in front of me.
Number 53. To begin the audit process, the voted ballot containers subject to the audit shall be delivered unopened and still sealed in the original containers.
Okay.
To protect that. To the inspectors in charge of the audit by
So
the
it's actually
custodian of the
done
ballot.
before the actual count. Well, it's been
no.
counted electronically.
Now, this is after the contesting period. This is after all that, okay?
Okay.
So this is not to overturn any election. This is to test
I
the
understand that part.
mechanisms of our elections use. Containers along with any other necessary election materials, including the electronic data. The post-election audit shall be conducted and completed by the time election returns required to be sent to the Secretary of State must be certified. At the conclusion of the audit, the ballot shall be returned to the original containers and sealed. All other documents, materials related to the audit, including but not limited to the inspector, poll worker oaths, poll watcher oaths, poll seals, testing materials for any tabulator used to the audit, and copies of probate court. Audit shall record and be labeled a record of audit. The inspector and other poll workers shall sign the containers and return to them the appropriate authority for storage with other records related to the audited election. The judge of probate shall report the findings to the Secretary of State, who shall make all results from the post-election audit public by posting the results
So, excuse me,
on
so
the
did
official
it
website.
state that it's counted or it's going back into the machine or it's up to the individual when it's being opened?
As far as the precinct, I don't understand your question.
Okay, once that precinct is chosen, and I heard it go through unsealed and everything, once it get in place and the recount starts, is that manually or is that electronically?
I'll get verification on that, but
Yeah,
as
because
far as the process.
I do have a concern if it's manually counted, because it could lead to human error as well. So I just wanted, I'm just trying to understand the process of it all.
Well, the machines could be wrong. There could be a fault with the machines.
That's
I know
true.
there's, and what they would do is they would use them if they use a machine that was not previously used. So you wouldn't use that same machine that counted that precinct before.
So let me ask
You'd
this
feed them in a
question.
different
Would
machine.
it be determined on, let's say, example, if because we see this all the time, and if there's an issue with a particular machine at a precinct, is it possible for that machine to be chosen, or does it still have to go through that process of being spot checked?
It would be a machine that was not previously used for that precinct.
Okay, what now?
So if you're auditing the results of the machine's count, you wouldn't send it through that same machine. You would send it through a different machine.
Okay, because
so that it gives
we
that
know
audit.
that there was an issue with that particular machine.
Correct.
So we know that we need to do that recount.
That's
then
right.
we just gonna put it on another machine. So basically, what you're saying that it's not going to be manually counted, is going back electronically.
But if as far as repeat your question again. You got.
Okay, so what you're saying is that it's not manually counted.
Your
but it would be
probate.
going through the machine, but I guess the confusion where I am is because in the beginning you said that it could be manually counted, and then we saying it could be electronically counted. So who determines?
Your probate judge would determine if they decided I don't want to put it back in a machine, or I don't want to bring another machine over, and let's say there's 200 votes in that precinct, your probate judge can just say, we'll just hand count them, and we'll make sure the numbers match. And then there the audit is complete. You've audited the work of that machine to make sure it worked correctly for accountability.
I mean, I don't have any issues with it. I do believe in accountability, you know, in being a former auditor, you know, I know that just about everything we do is audit. But here, I just want to make sure that things are done decent and in order and fair. And so I'm just trying to understand. So this is after the vote, after the challenges. So how long would this process take? Would it delay an election, the results of an election?
No, this is
So
this
it's
is
basically has
after.
nothing to do with that. It's afterwards. It's just making sure that it was counted and it was counted the correct way. And if I got 250 votes here, when I'm auditing here, it's going to be 250.
That's
So the
correct.
bottom line is the bottom line of what it is.
Amen. And if we have a problem, it shows that there may be an issue with the machine that we need to address before the next election, so that they can go in, make a deeper dive if they need to. But I'm hoping they show that it's nothing. All it does is give accountability to what we're already doing and gives people that peace of mind.
Okay. I think I have a pretty much an understanding. I just, you know, I just don't want trickery over trickery, you know. So I understand it on what I needed to understand. Thank you so much. And I would like to say to the first and the finest women, happy Founders Day. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Lovin, I just have a few questions.
Okay.
First question is, I think what I read is that it will be a minimum of $35,000 per day for audit.
Per day.
For audit. I've never seen a one-day audit. Maybe they can be done. I've never seen that. The thing that I really have a problem with is that the way the bill is written, actually, the expenditures are managed by the probate judge, not anybody at the state level. So they're one of the few officials in this state that will be able to manage the general fund. I mean, there's no limit. If they decide they want to audit 8 precincts, I don't see anything here to say they can't do that. They can audit 8 precincts, and for whatever period of time it takes, at a minimum of $35,000 a day. How do we pay for that?
Well, the $35,000 is a cumulative statewide. It's not per county. It's not per day. And if you've got a someone that's going in there, they have there are limits that could be exceeded. There are, but I would find it strange if a probate judge opened up all of them. But there are days that and people that are in place to do these audits, and I don't foresee it being a huge expense.
Who do you foresee are the people who will be doing the audit?
Who do I foresee what?
Who do you foresee the person who will be actually conducting the audit? The personnel, where would they come from?
Well, that would be selected through our election people. That the canvassing board would select the precinct, and so if they're selecting to do more, then you've got your sheriff there, you got your circuit clerk involved. They're all on the canvassing board that would decide which random precinct is going to be subject to the post-election audit.
Well, as I see this process in dealing with probate judges, they actually conduct what they're auditing. Excuse me. They are actually, in fact, auditing their own process. So the same people within the probate office, I don't know if they have enough people to conduct the audit and take care of the business of the office. That's what I'm concerned about, which means they might have to bring on other folk to do this. So I don't think $35,000 is unreasonable in terms of cost, especially in large counties. But I doubt that in a larger county, you're going to see them audit just one precinct. There's just so many, some have 50 precincts. And so I'm concerned about what kind of accountability do we have financially on that side? Because that could be a real problem, a real issue, since there is no limit, based on the way I read it, of what they audit. And actually, there's no limit to how long the audit goes. I would have liked to see us put some limitations on that. I think someone was figuring up $35,000 per audit times 67 counties is over $2 million. Okay. I don't foresee many counties having a one-day audit. Maybe that could happen. I've not seen that. Even when you have election challenges, sometimes it would take 2 weeks for us to get a response to that. If you follow that, that could be a tremendous burden on the general fund. That's one of the things that I'm really, really concerned about. I don't know if there's any other practice in the state where a county probate judge or a county official can actually incur no limits on costs to do an audit.
Well, they will have to submit for the reimbursement for these expenses and really justify this runaway spending. So there's plenty of stopgaps in there where there'll be questions asked of why this extent went or what was the reasoning behind it. So there will need to be some justification or some reasoning behind that expense.
Well, for instance, if a probate judge say, in order to do what I need to do, I need to hire 5 extra people to conduct this audit. It wouldn't take long for it to get way past that.
And those expenses could be denied if they're beyond the normal operation of what a post-election audit like this should look like. So there's a stopgaps in there to where that could be, gated back. So I think there's some things in place that would protect from that.
Well, that's the thing that I'm concerned about, because I don't see any accountability in that area financially. And that's the thing that really bothers me, because what winds up happening is that, and I think someone said, I guess it's at his discretion. And at his discretion, there are a lot of things that be involved in that. But I don't see the regular staff in the office being able to conduct an audit in one day and still carry out their other duties. Most of them don't have any extra people in the office. So that really concerns me. And what I'm really determined is, what do we expect to achieve? What do we expect to achieve out of this?
Just one more step of accountability and making sure that we are doing everything we can to instill trust in the people that elect me and you, that we're doing everything we can, that our mechanisms that we have in place for our election process are working seamless, working correctly, to have fair, honest elections, and it's not a big expense to be able to do that. And I just think that it's just one small, tiny step, not very impactful on the people that have to do it, just to show, hey, not only do we think we got the safest and best elections in the state, we really do. And here's one more thing that we're doing to prove that.
So is that to say we assume that we have one of the worst, or we are not accounting for it properly, or there have been so many cases of it that we need to do this?
Well, everything's an assumption until you prove it, and here's a chance to prove it. So I think this is a great opportunity just to show in good faith through a fair, honest post-election audit that we're doing everything we can and doing it correctly, and everything that we have in place, our mechanisms in place, are working properly.
Well, in order to do that, we have to audit the entire procedure at that level.
Well,
Not just what happens in that office, what happens before it gets to that office. All of that would have to be a part of the audit. That's why I don't see the audit being done in one day.
well, like I said, this is just one step. This is a toe in the door
Yeah.
of, hey, here's one step we're doing to make sure this is working correctly.
So the way that this is set up, with it being no limit on expenditures, none in the bill anyway. It might be some operationally, but none in the bill. I think I read a minimum of $35,000. If it's a minimum of $35,000, then we have to start thinking about priorities for the general fund. And I really think that if the probate judge is in charge of all these folk who are involved in this process, then I don't know that the state ought to bear the burden for all of that, because a lot of it could be just in the way the process is managed at the local level. And that ought to be the responsibility of the probate judge, in my opinion. Now, I can understand some of the thoughts about it might not be working well, but I'm trying to find out, do we have enough data to say that it's not working well? I mean, I hadn't seen that. If we have, there are always going to be some errors, whether it's a computer or individual human error. But I'm trying to determine whether the expenditure that we're about to put forth with this is really, does the audit outweigh that? Because that is a massive expenditure if you have more than one precinct that you're auditing. And that's my concern more than anything else. I think, what you're trying to do is good. I just think that we need
And the gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the lady from Mobile, Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, mention has been made several times about close races. Does this bill address very close races in any way? Is the purpose of this at all to monitor the outcome of very close races?
Now, this is just to verify the operation of our process, our mechanics, our machines, that what's being tallied is matching and correctly and working correctly. This is a post-election audit. It's extended past the time. It won't change any election. There's no results that would change from this. This just helps us, one, prove that the things we have in place are working correctly, or two, there's something we need to address. There's a flaw in some system that we need to address before the next election, which that's what audits
Something
do.
mechanical.
They find issues, or they prove there are no issues, so that everybody can have peace of mind moving forward.
Okay, so I imagine you know more about recounts than I do. When law already requires that when there's a very close election, I think a half of a percent or half of a percent, if the results are that close, that there shall be a recount automatically. Is that correct?
This has nothing to do with the recount process. This is all beyond the contested. This is just to test our processes and make sure they're in place correctly.
Okay. Well, I just felt a need to address that subject just briefly because inference has been made that this bill might do something to, okay.
No, this is this would not change any election results whatsoever. It would identify if we have an issue that we need to address before the next statewide or general election.
So if in doing this following this procedure, if it was determined that the results of an election were incorrect, would any action be taken?
Well, that contested period's over, so it would not. But it would help for the next time and make sure. I hope they find there's no problem at all, and so that we can look the people in the eye that we represent and say everything that we have and contest in our procedures, it seems to be working correctly. That's my hope.
Okay. As I recall, when our former colleague, Representative Debbie Wood, brought this up, she used as an example that her own race was very, very close.
Sure.
And that was what gave her the idea of coming up with this legislation.
Well,
And
she understands that every vote counts, and it should. And we need to make sure things are working correctly so that even when it is, even if it's just one vote, whatever the vote is the vote is. And if we can verify that that is exactly what the vote was, that's even more of a understanding of where our processes are working correctly and give people that we represent that peace of mind.
Okay, but the intent of this legislation has nothing to do with election recounts.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Mobile, Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a couple of quick questions, and I wasn't here for the full debate because I was in another meeting. But who conducts the audits? The probate court judge does?
Correct.
And is there a certain criteria by which he has to go by in this particular piece of legislation for that?
There is. A process is defined, and then the results are presented in a format that is defined to the Secretary
Tell me
of
what
State.
that process is.
Sure. Which part? The post, what, once the report is concluded? a description?
Once it has been decided that there will be an audit and the probate judge has to do it, what is that process from that point on?
There will be no decision of one. This bill would say there has to be one. Okay? So there has to be one precinct, randomly selected.
But in the bill, it also says if the probate judge deems it, he could go to more precincts if he like, right?
Here she could.
Okay.
And then at the conclusion of the audit, the ballots shall be returned to their original containers and sealed. All other documents, materials related to the audit, including but not limited to inspector and poll worker oaths, poll watcher oaths, seals, any tabular used in the audit, the copies of orders for the probate court related to the audit shall be placed in a separate container labeled a record of audit. Okay?
It's at that time, is he working with the voting machine company, or who is he? Because in most counties, in Mobile, we have a voting manager. Is he working with that manager, or is he working with the absentee? I'm trying to find out specifics of the process.
Whatever his process would be for accessing this, and then this just says how it has to be sealed back. They have all the things for the election, have to follow certain steps. This would put it back into that type of procedure. The judge of probate shall report the findings to the Secretary of State, who shall make all results from the post-election audit public by posting the results on the official website for the Secretary of State.
Okay.
Post-election audit report shall include all
Mr.
the following.
Sponsor, can you go back before when it's been decided that we will do an audit? Do the probate judge, will he be responsible for notifying said candidates in whatever that election is?
No.
Will he go and notify the various parties that this is what we're about to do? We're about to conduct an audit on this one precinct?
No.
Why not? I mean, these are the folks who are involved, right?
This does not have any impact to overturn or change the results of any election.
What is our purpose here then?
Purpose is to verify that the mechanisms we have in place, the machines we have, are working correctly and accurately, and show that the process that went through this election, everything is working correctly.
Why would we do this on the back end when I know in my county they're supposedly are doing it on the front end? So why are we doing it on the back end as well?
Because we can't have too many steps in place to make sure that we are presenting true, fair, honest elections. They test the machines, and they run through some
So
different
this bill is
processes.
to restore the integrity of the voting process or the election
It's
process?
just to give more people the peace of mind that your votes, my votes, people that's elected us.
Well, I may
everything
have
around the
a
process.
different kind of mind, but my peace of mind would be before and not after.
Well, there are things in place, but if there was a problem with that machine that happened through the steps of the election, then this would identify there's an issue there that we need to fix, or there's some little step that we can correct before the next statewide election.
Well, my other question is, and you may have already answered this, is there a specific case that warrants this particular piece of legislation? If so, will you give me the specifics of it?
No specific case.
Well, why do we need it?
Well, there was a pilot program done, and there was,
Tell me where. I have to know
which
specifics.
county it was done. We funded just to do a post-election audit to make sure.
Where?
I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was a discrepancy on the numbers. So whatever that is, or whether it's the machine malfunctioned or there was some other problem in the process, it was another indicator of, okay, let's just double check this. And so that's all it is. And we extended it far enough out with the people that run the process to where this wouldn't overturn any election. That process would have already gone through. But if we have a flaw in a machine, flaw in a process that we need to correct, it
But
gives us time to
shouldn't we
correct it
find out
beforehand.
that flaw before the process begins?
Well, hopefully we would.
I mean, why not do an audit at the beginning rather than at the end when you say it's not going to affect anything? And I guess I'm sitting here when I read the legislation and I read the physical note. Now, it may not be a lot of money, but to some places, you know, the amount of money that it's going to cost the state, I just kind of feel like we could use that in a better purpose. And if the purpose of this legislation is to give folks that confidence and also let them know that there's integrity in this process, it seems that it would be better suited at the beginning to ensure that nothing's going to go wrong or nothing will go wrong.
Well, I don't run elections, and a lot of people have a lot of passions and a lot of responsibilities with the election process.
Well, I don't run elections either.
And over
and I've been in several of them, and there have been problems.
And over the last
And as a person who's been in the middle of one, nobody notified me of a problem, and I would have much rather known about that problem at the beginning rather than at the end. Because I think it's fair to the voters of Alabama, and it's fair to those who are brave enough, as the speaker said this morning to the great commissioner who was retiring, when we get ourselves, I don't think it's a mess, but when we get ourselves and have the heart to want to make Alabama better, and we become servants of the people, as one of those servants, I would much rather want to know if that machine is accurate at the beginning and not at the end.
Well, for over the last 3 years, people involved in the election process have worked on both sides to find the best spot for a post-election audit to land. And this bill is a compilation of those talks and negotiations of where.
Well, let me
one,
just
if
say
a
this.
good
In the
accurate-
bill, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the probate court judge, he will decide if such an audit takes place, correct?
No, there is no decision of an audit. There will be required to do at least one precinct per county.
And he gets to pick it at random. I thought that's what the bill
The
said.
canvassing board, which would be your sheriff, your circuit clerk, and the probate judge, would collectively choose that random.
if you're in a situation or in a county where everybody is from one party, what would give the other party the assurance that they're going to do it in their favor?
I don't think anything about this bill is partisan whatsoever.
Well, that's my point. I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
But if the sheriff, the probate judge, and who was the other person?
Circuit clerk.
The circuit court clerk. If all of those were from one party, what assurance would the other party have that this was going to be done accurately in favor of straight down the middle, with no blinders on?
Well, there's processes in place. There's oaths that.
But
you have
that's
to
my
take
point. Their
before an
process
audit.
is already in place, so why are we doing it?
There's not a post-election audit in place. Now, this would put it in place, where we test our tabulators to see if the count generated matches. So this would be a new step, a new process. And like I said, over the last 3 years, people on both sides have come together.
Okay, I
What's
guess
the most accurate
tell
way to
me
do it?
at
What's
the
least-
end, once an audit is done, how will it improve our process that we have now? Since you have no specifics that this has happened anywhere else, how will it improve it now?
Okay.
Because I'm still trying to wonder
Ladies' time
why
has
we're doing
expired.
it. I'll come back.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
He just thought he just gonna get some of these choices out the way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, first of all, I believe this is a frivolous bill. And the reason I believe it is because we have no information other than the way people feel. And even when you all pass this bill, there's still gonna be some people, for whatever reasons, that's going to have a question of election integrity. So for people who continue to bring it up, do we continue to bring different bills to try to satisfy them in the fact that they don't believe that there's an integrity in the election? I never heard this level of cry to the point that we would bring a bill prior to the 2015 election, 2016 election. I've heard people talk about, and you mentioned that it's no effect on the election, this audit. And I've heard people ask, why then will we spend the money if there is no effect on the outcome of the election? Already, if there's a problem with the voting machine and its count, usually you find that out during the process of the 12 hours of election. Most people, when they put their ballot in to read, if it don't read, they're gonna report that to the inspector right then and there. If they've got 2 machines, all of the votes will be directed to the machine that's working until someone can come out and perform maintenance on it. The other thing is that if you don't have any evidence that there's a problem, then, and I asked this before, how many times do we go on people's feelings? I have people that feel as though the legislative process is corrupt. Do we start bringing bills to fix something that's not definitive? They don't have any proof, but some believe that the legislative process is corrupt and there's a problem, but we have no specifics, like you don't have any specifics of examples of where this has happened. Then to bring a bill that say we're gonna have this audit and it would be arbitrary as to which precincts we pick. But at the same time, you could be having some irregularities that have been reported. And from that perspective, normally we could determine the whether election is a good election or a field with different type of irregularities based upon the number of complaints filed during the complaint period or not filed. That's our proof. And when people say they don't have any confidence, we show them our records like we've done in the past to show them if you got a specific precinct, a specific county, here's the information from that area to show you we had no irregularities. And we've already got something on the books to say that already. I believe it's a frivolous bill. When I came into the legislature, that's one thing that we were always cautioned about. Frivolous bills being bills where we have no evidence that some type of correction need to be made. We don't have any data to prove anything irregular has happened, and if it has, on what consistency did it happen? We don't have that. And we all, people elect us, and they elect us to represent them, and when we represent them in truth, and truth ain't based upon how I feel, it's based upon what the facts say. So unless we have some facts to prove that there's a problem versus some people who have questioned the election, but they can't give you a specific incident. You haven't been able to give us any specific incidents.
That's incorrect.
Well, give them to me now because I've been listening.
There was a pilot program funded.
No, that was a pilot program, but prior to the pilot program, give me the incidents that happened for the pilot program to be put in place, because I understand the pilot program was put in place because of somebody's feeling. I heard you say with the pilot, one time, one number was wrong. One time out of how many ballots being cast across the state of Alabama, you come back with a bill from a pilot program for one time. One time somebody jaywalked across the street. So that one time means that now we got to have something to arrest everybody that jaywalks across the street that you don't see. This is a frivolous bill. Even with your pilot program, you only came up with one incident. That's not sufficient. That's what it was termed a frivolous bill. But if we can determine a pattern, if there's a pattern in this happening in various counties across the state, in various precincts across the state, I could see the need. Mr. Speaker, one thing, and just from my perspective, as to why so many of us are coming to the microphone, is that we're talking about one incident that happened in a pilot program that was put in place because somebody felt like, but didn't have facts to go along with the way they feel. I feel this is a frivolous bill, and we should carry it on, carry it over, and that handle the business for the citizens of the state of Alabama who need health care, who need to bring down the cost of food, who need appropriate housing. There are so many other things that we need to be about over one incident. I thank you for listening to my asking that, because it just appears to be what we were taught when I came into the legislature as something that is termed a frivolous bill. One incident out of how many ballots that were cast in the state of Alabama is a frivolous. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Virginia Van.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Listen, real quickly, my sentiments are the same and have been. I just sat and just tried to recall this bill from last year. My recollection some days is not as good as it usually is. I do a pretty good job, but this is the first bill up out the chute. So I suspect I'll do as I've done for the last 16 years. I'll get better and better and better and gooder and gooder and gooder as we move on through this session, which I'm going to do that even to those who don't want me to. And I think somebody said something to me yesterday about keeping the powder dry or something. I'm good one way or the other, because when I get ready to do what I'm going to do it. So with that being said, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
You had a good off season?
I did.
You ready to get back to work?
Ready.
With that being said, I have one or two questions. Just going back to the process, I don't see where the bill is needed. I didn't see where it was needed last year. You know, I've asked time and time again, year in and year out, please somebody show me a compilation of the total number of fraud in the state of Alabama during any given election cycle. You're dealing with humans. You're dealing with human errors. I get that. I got it when Debbie said it last year, the number of votes that determined her race. I got that. I get it. But even with that being said, I've always wished that we would focus our attention, and I've said this time and time again, to those people who vote over and over in these elections that vote outside of the precinct for which they actually live. That is voter fraud, is defined by the Code of Alabama. And we still, to this day, have not brought anything to address that particular issue. Because at the end of the day, you're already in violation if you live on 15th Street South and your precinct is on 39th Street all the way on the east side, but you're gonna still drive, and that's the same place that you registered to vote when you were 18, and you are now 118, and then you still can use that address, and nobody tries to really clamp down on that. That to me, and I again have said this time and time again, because all of these other issues that we have, folks are voting that should not be voting outside of the precinct for which they are governed by the laws of the state of Alabama to vote. And we're not doing anything to address that issue. That's the real audit. That's the real audit process. And until we fix that problem, you're gonna have those one or two folks that's gonna crisscross and whatever. But I still am yet to see in this House any legislation that anyone has been able to bring to me. I think maybe the highest number we had may have been, I don't even think that we've gotten to 20 or 10. I can't even remember, but nobody is today. I've just asked for show me 100 one time during any given election cycle. Just show me. And that's the best number that I could just come up with, because it at least gets us into beyond a double-digit number to that, and nobody has been able to show me. So my problem with a lot of the bills has been you all bring these bills where one or two people are impacted, but you bring it for the entire state to have to suffer with. So, you know, like I said, I have a lot of more issues going on that I'm going to talk about at this microphone, and talk about a couple of entities down here at the given time that are in Montgomery. And I'm going to use my voice, and I'm getting ready to pipe up. So when I do get ready, I'll be ready for it. Yeah, so with that being said, I just wish that as whoever's in the Secretary of State's office that's going to be, if you're going to be bringing any bills deal with election fraud, that you do so. And hopefully they will listen, you know, to somebody. I know y'all not going to listen too much to. That's why I don't ask you not to do what you do. I just feel I should have a right to come to say what I need to say without penalty or without some of these. With that being said, the bill goes into effect how many days after the execution of the governor's signature?
I think it's immediate. Be effective immediately. So it'll be in for this.
But I think I
next
do know
general
what,
election.
I did have a question with one thing. How did you all get to that number of the 35,000? How did you get to that compilation?
Well, the fiscal office provided a fiscal note based on if a precinct was chosen, kind of the for each county, what an average amount per day that would be. And some counties may be a little more, some may be a little less.
But should that number not be based upon the actual number of votes that are supposed to be? Like even with our redistricting, we have to look at the demographics of the actual district, not what we think is a compilation of.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of expense. For instance, if a precinct takes those votes, walks over to the tabulator, those ballots, and just sets them in there and lets it run, it shouldn't take a lot of time. And so the amount of time needed to conduct the audit should be minimal.
Okay, I was just curious as to how you all came up with the with that compilation, that total number, the cost of the 35,000. So, and this will go into effect this voting cycle? Okay, so is that why this is fresh out the chute today?
The randomness of how the committees met, and this bill was in committee yesterday, and that's just how the regular order calendar came out. So I found out it was first yesterday myself. So
Yeah, but this bill came out of, what committee voted this bill out?
general fund.
Oh, it came out of the CC&E last time, so that's why, that was another thing that threw me off.
Well, there's a cost to it, so we want to make sure that the general fund committee is aware of it and make sure everything is squared away.
There was a cost to it last year, but it still came out of CC&E. But I know that's at the discretion of the chair. So, but I was curious to know how did we get there. So with that being said, it's always a pleasure. A&E speaking with you. You look well. You've lost a little weight. Everybody's been losing weight around the State House.
Wow. You look well as well, so.
Okay, I have this coat on because I'm free. It's people don't understand how cold this chamber is.
I like it.
I know a lot of people. Well, Mary Moore does too. But I have two heaters, but it's freezing. But I think the clerk said he's gonna work on possibly getting us some 1 or 2 more heaters and.
Gotta be careful with those heaters. So.
No, well, I've been had one over here, but listen, I'm very cold-natured, and it gets to be cold. And every now and then, I see some of your colleagues put on their mink jacket coats and float around in here and everything. So I'm gonna keep mine on today because I'm about to freeze over here. But with that being said, Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing you in a few days.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marengo, Representative McCampbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Gentleman Yield.
Yes, sir.
We've had some good discussion, I think, on this bill, and I understand I want my colleagues to understand that this is a post-election bill. So let's not forget that. Thus, it does not change anything that happens in the election, but it's a post-election bill. So with that in mind, I want to offer an amendment, and we've discussed it. I've given it to you. We just have a different, you feel it's not necessary. I think it gives us a little bit more confidence in the process. And so you and I have an agreement on something, so I'm going to make the amendment.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 95 by Representative McCampbell.
Representative McCampbell, you here to explain your amendment, please.
The amendment on line 30, replace line 39 on page 2 with the following statement. Election shall randomly select by drawing from the pool of all voting precincts at least one precinct. And that's to cover these 67 counties, that particular part of it, where each one does one.
Well, and I appreciate your work on this. It's already said in there to be random. It's already said at least one precinct, and they will have to take from that pool of precincts. So
Right.
out of respect for you and your work through this process to move forward, I will not move to lay it on the table, but I will say that we voted up and down. I would just vote no and be against adding it because I don't think it's needed. So out of respect. So
I appreciate it, sir.
thank you.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation, and the sponsor's wishes are what he's going to do. So if you're for the amendment, the vote would be yes. If you're opposed to the amendment, your vote will be no. Clerk will unlock the machines, and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the
I
machine.
haven't seen that much red in a long time. Roll Tide!
Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide!
Clerk will lock the machine. 73 nays, 29 yeas. The amendment has failed. What's for the body now is passage of HB 95. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 72 ayes, 25 nays. HB 95 has passed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill number 145 with substitute by Representative Lee relating to taxation.
Chairman Lee, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me clarify, this has nothing to do with elections. And this really, it has nothing to do with taxes. It's just under the tax code. So we're not raising any taxes. And we're going to have to address a substitute in just a minute, but I will explain what this bill does. It updates the definition for the Department of Revenue, which establishes a license for an interstate warehouser. This bill has been vetted and somewhat suggested by Revenue to clarify some issues and supported by them. It will allow an interstate warehouser to purchase tobacco products directly from a manufacturer and sell to a licensed wholesale dealer in Alabama. Today, they're having to ship this from the manufacturer to a third-party warehouse rather than shipping it straight to there. So with that being said, Mr. Speaker, we have an amendment that one was a misspelled word and then the wrong word was used on one page.
Okay, the question for the body is the adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 97 ayes, 0 nays. The BR has been adopted, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I was asked page 8, line 209, interstate was misspelled. Page 15, page 401, the word I think it was wholesaler, should have been warehouser. Replace it with warehouser.
You've heard the chairman's explanation of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. Substitute has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move for passage as amended.
That's the question's final passage of HB 145. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. HB 145 has passed as substituted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the body.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, House Bill number 50 by Representative Collins relating to the Department of Early Childhood Education.
Chairwoman Collins, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. We also passed this bill last year. It just establishes the Imagination Library, Dolly Parton Imagination Library program that we are already participating in Alabama. It's under the Department of Early Childhood. Is administering it. It is very popular. I've already heard from many members that some of your children and grandchildren are already getting these books. And I love hearing that because the whole goal of the bill is to help children learn to love reading. So at the appropriate time, I'd like to pass the BIR.
That is questions. Adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted.
Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I ask for final passage.
That is the questions. Final passage of HB 50. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. HB 50 has passed. Representative Sellers, you got a question for her. No, come on up. That's fine.
I'm happy for people.
Well, no, it's like, come on, as we call for the vote, and I didn't want you to miss that opportunity to say something to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Lady Yield. Just a brief comment. Everyone knows that Malin Grace is 14 months, and she's already been receiving those books already.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great comment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank the lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, House Bill number 124 by Representative Collins relating to the Alabama Math and Science Teacher Education Program.
Chair Lady Collins, you're recognized.
Thank you. We also passed this bill last year, and it made it through Senate committee and did not make it through the last day. And so what this bill does is, in the past, we've had a loan repayment trying to encourage educators to work in math, science, and career tech fields. And we've funded that program, but people have not taken as much advantage of it. And we have more areas where we have acute area shortages of teachers, such as special ed. And so this renames it from AMSTEP to LASEA, LASEA, which is Loan Assistance in Support of Educators. And what it does is it lets anywhere we have an acute shortage of educators, it lets them qualify if they already have debt to the loan repayment. So I ask for the BIR.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Franklin, Representative Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Collins, we spoke earlier about this bill and the concept behind it about loan forgiveness as opposed to other kinds of incentives to get more teachers in the classroom. And I think the next bill you've got is more of a grant program.
It is.
And so I wish we could, I know we have a shortage in the classroom. There are essential areas in education where we're having a hard time staffing those positions. I wish we could get more to a corporate model where we look at incentivizing them by whether we help them with their education up front, we do sign-on bonuses, or some other type of innovative ideas like the TEAMS Act, like we've done. And so I appreciate the concept for what we're looking at here as far as getting more teachers in the classroom. We got to do that. But I believe the loan forgiveness incentivizes people to take out debt. I don't think that's the best way forward. I hope that students will look more towards working through school, applying for scholarships. That's what I've done. My daughter's a full-time college student right now, and she's working at a local bank. And so I have encouraged her. She applied for every scholarship she could so that we didn't have to incur debt to do that. So I appreciate the concept. I appreciate the heart behind it. But the actual loan forgiveness, I have an issue with that. I hope we can move forward with your next bill.
Well, I appreciate that. I do want to say I have 3 children, and only one ended up having debt, and he chose to go to Columbia, so he got that debt.
Yeah.
But he has paid it off now as well. So I'm proud of that. It's already done. This is a program that we have. If we have teachers with a lot of debt, it's going to take them a long, long time to pay that off. We will decide which ones are in acute shortages, just so you know, by who's teaching, how many they have teaching out of subject. And we have, I heard in committee, some counties and some systems that have as many as 80% teaching out of subject. So for those that we have that have debt, I'm glad we've got a program that would be available to all of them. But I agree with your premise of let's reward and incent them to join. But right now, this is the program we have. Thank you.
All right.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes Leader Stahagen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick question. Are we making sure that we're retaining these students in the state of Alabama? Like, is there any?
Yes, they have to be a citizen. They have to be teaching in there. There's a driver's license required, even a voter ID in the bill. Yes.
So, like, if we.
They have to be our teachers.
Yes. Okay. So you see where I'm going?
Yes.
Because
they
we
have
got a
to
lot
be,
of
and that's in the bill. They have to be our teachers in the school system to qualify for it.
Okay.
And if they qualify, and it's a 4-year cap as well. So if they qualify for it and then they move to another place to teach in another state, they don't qualify the next year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is the adoption of the BLR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote, 98 ayes, 2 nays. The BLR has been adopted.
Ask for final passage.
That is questions final passage of HB 124. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes, 92 ayes, 8 nays. HB 124 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, House Bill number 125 by Representative Collins relating to the Alabama Commission on Higher Education.
Chairwoman Collins.
Thank you. This is the next bill that we also passed last year and just did not make it through. And it's what Representative Keel was talking about too. It is a grant program. It is not a loan reimbursement. It's called Reengage Alabama. It's trying to increase our workforce participation, which is extremely important to all of us. And so what this one does is if you started your college career, skills, getting a skill, whether community college or back in a university, and you dropped out, this actually offers you a grant if you've been out for 2 years to drop back in to attain that skill so that you're qualified to be in the workforce. So all this bill does is it lowers the age from 25, which is now what it is, to 22. Because some people start college right out of high school, drop out, and then they're ready to get back into it, and they're not 25 yet. They're still just like 22. So that's all this bill does.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
We're speaking out on good terms now. Don't be messing us up right now. So the current age is 25, where people
Correct.
could come back in
To qualify for the grant.
to qualify for the grant. So you're lowering that age to 22. Why
Correct.
not keep it at 25? Because sometimes it take people a little bit longer.
Well, if they're 25, they'll still be eligible.
But
it's just if
22
they're
can?
22, let's say they graduated at 18 and they started in community college and they didn't finish after that first year or even dropped out.
So you're
Well,
saying
then they come to their senses and they're 22 now they'll be qualified.
So that for clarity's sake, prior to your amendment that you're doing to the bill, they would have to wait until 25?
Correct.
Okay, because that's not clear.
That's what I
Okay,
meant
so-
to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not clear. Thank you so much.
Chair thanks the lady. Question for the body now. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Hale, Representative Travis, to be the second person to speak on the BIR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With Gentlelady Yield.
Yes.
I think this is a wonderful bill. You know, having dealt with education, I think you find the opportunity for someone like Star to work school, drop out, maybe work in a daycare center, or work in a school as a paraprofessional aide or something like that, and determine that they want to pursue and be a teacher. This is a great step and great assistance to help provide that need. So I think this is wonderful, and lowering the age really makes a difference. So I
Thank you very
appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Curtis.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is the adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. The BIR has been adopted. Madam Collins.
If there are no other questions, I'd ask for final passage.
That is the question, is final passage of HB 125. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. HB 125 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, body.
Thanks, the lady. Clerk recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand adjourned.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.